Hey y'all, it's Brady. Welcome to my channel and thank you so much for joining me and welcome to another Cook With Me. So today I've got some spring and summer dessert and just general spring and summer cooking for you. I know that you're going to love these. These strawberry desserts are amazing. So we've got a strawberry poke cake, the strawberry pie. I made some homemade yeast rolls. I grilled some chicken. We just did a lot of cooking that weekend, and this was actually Mother's Day weekend, and I just can't wait to share these delicious recipes with you. I know you're going to love them, so stick around and let's get cooking for spring and summer.
So here I've got everything out to make the rolls, so let me just share with you what all I've got. So in this I've got a cup of whole milk and 2 tablespoons of butter. So I brought the whole milk to 180 degrees. I actually used my microwave. And then you just test it with this. And you want to bring the temperature back down to below 130, I believe. And so that, putting that cold butter in there, it melts your butter down, but it also cools your milk down. So you can see it's just kind of sitting there on top. But that's what I do. The recipe doesn't say to do that. It says to use softened butter. So use your discretion, do what you will there. I've got a 1/4 cup of hot water. I can stick my finger in there. It's not going to bother me, but you want it warm. A 1/4 cup of sugar plus a teaspoon of sugar, and then a packet of instant yeast or dry active yeast. I've got a little over a tablespoon here because I just have a big container in my freezer. And then you also need a teaspoon of salt here. I'm just going to grind that in there when I'm ready for that. And then it says 3.5 to 4.5 cups of flour. I use bread flour. But I've got 4 cups here, and then if I need more, I'll get that out. And then I've got 1 egg. So my butter is back, is cooling down. So I'm going to stir that up here. But while we're letting that do that, we're actually going to add our sugar and our yeast to the water here. And I'm just going to stir that up. This is an opportunity for the yeast to bloom. It just makes sure that your yeast is good and active and hasn't expired, or gone bad. So, you don't necessarily have to do this blooming part, but I do. I just follow the instructions on that. So it's just kind of a mess, and you'll see in a few minutes it'll start to froth, and you're ready to go. So there's my sugar, and then I'm also going to take a spoon here. Let me just get a plastic spoon out of my drawer. And I'm just going to mix this up. And we're going to check the temperature again and see what the temperature is actually at, because when you put it on the top there, it'll be misleading. So yeah, 125 is pretty good. So I'll let that sit there for another minute or so. You're good for it to be warm, but just you don't want it boiling hot. Okay, so when this yeast is bloomed, here in a few minutes, I'll come back and we'll start mixing it all together.
Okay, so now that my yeast is bloomed, this is really just kind of dump it all in there and let your mixer do the work. So if you do not have a stand mixer, what you're going to want to do is add these ingredients just like I am doing and mix it all up with a big wooden spoon or a big strong spatula. And then you would just need to hand knead, which will probably take you a little bit longer. I let this knead, I think it ended up being about 12 minutes. I really work the dough for quite a while. So if you are hand kneading, it is going to take longer than that. But just, you'll see kind of at the end the result that I have. And that's what you're looking for before you let your dough rest. So here I've got the flour, the salt, and the bloomed yeast, as well as an egg, and then we will add in our butter and milk mixture, and that's really about it. And once that all comes together, then we start the kneading process. So what you didn't see here was me spilling part of my milk and butter mixture, but it still turned out just fine. And yeah, you just keep an eye on it, get it to all come together, and then I think after this part I add in the rest of my flour. because it's just kind of hard to do. If you have all of your flour in the roll all at one time, you will end up with a big mess. Ask me how I know. I know because I've done it. So start with just a little bit of the flour, then add in the wet ingredients, then more flour, back and forth, you get it. So the exact recipe that I use will be in the description box for you, because this is not my own recipe. I'm just kind of tweaking different ones that I found, but I'll leave you the one that I went by, typed out. I actually found this creator on TikTok, but it was just the most straightforward recipe. I think this was, it might have been on TikTok, it might have been on Pinterest, now I can't remember, but the recipe will be linked in the description box for you, just so that you are fully aware of all the ingredients and all the exact measurements, all that good stuff. So this just takes some time. Bread is just a labor of love. It does take time. Now, I am very, 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 very thankful for my trusty KitchenAid mixer, because she does all of the hard work of mixing all of this stuff up. But once you get all of your flour incorporated, then you'll start your kneading time, and just kind of go from there. So that's really it. We're just going to mix it all in there, and then it'll be good to go, and I'll show you what it looks like after it is done kneading. For the poke cake first. How many times can I say cake in 1 minute? We'll see. So I'm just following the package instructions, not the destructions. I am following the package instructions. There's the word. And I'm just doing the eggs. And I do remember, since this is a white cake, it called for the egg whites, I believe, but I just used the whole eggs. It was fine. I don't care. It looked still white enough, and it served the purpose that I needed it to. You'll see there at the end that it looks just fine to me. So I am just following, like I said, the package directions here. That's what I was trying to do a minute ago. I combined directions and instructions and came up with destructions, which, you know, depending on how messy I end up making my kitchen sometimes, it could also be following the destruction of my kitchen, that is. Anyways, so once you just make your cake mix according to the directions, you pour it into a pan and bake it, and then we'll get to the actual poke part at the end once it comes out. And then I put whipped cream on top and fresh strawberries, and it is just delicious. So this was such a hit. We really enjoyed this. I really liked that it was still a light cake, but it was sweet, and the presentation was beautiful as well, so just can't beat that. So get this mixed up, put this into a pan, and pop this into the oven. When that comes out, I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Roasted red pepper vinaigrette, which is what I use as a marinade for my grilled chicken. Now, forever ago, it seems like now, Kroger discontinued their Kroger brand roasted red pepper vinaigrette salad dressing, and honestly, I never even used it on a salad, but what I used it for was marinating chicken. I will say that this recipe was delicious. It made some amazing chicken. But it is not an exact to that recipe, or to that bottled dressing, which, you know, when you make a homemade dressing, it never is. But this was, much thicker and much heartier of a dressing. It was delicious. I think it would be great on a salad, but, it is just not the exact match. So if you're like me and trying to find the exact match to that, then that's not going to be what you're looking for. But it was delicious as a marinade, so there's that. So again, as I mentioned for the other recipes, this one will be linked down in the description box, so you can check out the original website for that recipe and see all the exact measurements. But it's oil, vinegar. I used, I think, red wine vinegar for this, a jar of the roasted red peppers, some salt, paprika, a few different things. Pepper in there as well, and some garlic, and then you just emulsify it here. So I am using my blender that does have the little opening on the top, and then I'll pour in my oil through the top there, and you'll see it really emulsify and come together. And then I just poured it into a bag with my boneless, skinless chicken breast, and we let it marinate throughout the day, and it was good to go. So this does make a disaster though, because this is sort of I guess a higher power blender, and so it's kind of making a mess splashing all across my counters, but that's okay. It turned out delicious and a pretty easy marinade. You just throw it all in the blender and let it go. So that was pretty easy, but I'll show you what it looks like here at the end. And then I just poured it over my chicken. So yeah, you can see here, that's what it looked like. It is definitely a bright orange, pretty color. And then I just poured it over my chicken, so you'll see that once I grill that up. Also, for one of the days over that weekend, we had some waffles, hash browns, and bacon. And these are actually some frozen vanilla honey, I believe, waffles that I got at Target. Okay, here's our poke cake. So you need to poke, obviously, to have a poke cake. But you poke a bunch of holes in there, and I am using a straw, but you can use a small end of a spoon, whatever you like. You just need some little like 1/4-inch holes in there. And then we will mix up the gelatin mix here, and you pour that over it, and then you let that sit in the refrigerator, and then we'll do the whipped cream on top at the end. So here's my Jello mix, and we'll just pour it over, if this is not an exact science by any means. Okay, time to make the whipped cream. So I've got some heavy whipping cream in here and some powdered sugar and a few splashes of vanilla. And you could use a stand mixer, but mine was being washed, so I'm using my hand mixer here, which this is a really quick process. I think this maybe took me like 4 minutes to get it to this consistency right here that I wanted. And then I just poured it over the cake once the cake had completely cooled and set up in the fridge. Here's my fresh strawberries on top, and it was such a hit. So I'm going to wrap that back up though. I did show you kind of backwards there with my strawberries on top, but I put that in the fridge with the whipped cream and added the strawberries afterward. But here is what our dough looks like. It has completely doubled, maybe perhaps a little bit more. And then I punched it down and put it here on a cutting board. You can put it on a floured countertop, whatever you like. And I just pressed this out with my hands, and then I did end up using a rolling pin and just sort of flattening it out evenly as best I could. And then I just use a knife here. You can use even a pizza cutter, whatever you like. And I like to cut it this way and then pinch and roll the rolls by hand. That way, this just sort of gives me somewhat of the same size rolls. Not really, but it's close. You could alternatively weigh each of your dough balls. That would definitely give you a more exact size. I don't do that. This works just fine for me. So cut these out. I think this made between 16 and 20 rolls, and then I'll just show you here how I do it. So I just pinch it together, and then I roll everything to the center, and this is me doing it one hand while filming. So when you've got two hands, you can definitely do this. And then I just roll it around on my countertop here until it sort of comes together and is a solid ball, and plop it onto a buttered, yes, it needs to be buttered, a buttered sheet pan, and then we'll let these proof again, and then we'll pop them into the oven. So here's another example. I am just pinching all of that from the underside to the middle, and then squeezing it together so that the seam is closed, and then I will roll them around just to tuck all the edges in for sure, and pop them onto the baking sheet. So I'm not going to make you watch me do all of them individually, but you get the gist here, and then you throw them onto your sheet, just like that. Okay, so while those were proofing, and that took another hour or two to double in size again, I am making the gelatin to set up for the strawberry pie. I also have the pie crust in the oven. I think I put it on 325 and just popped a frozen pie crust into the oven there. You just want to get it cooked through before you put this in, since you're not baking this strawberry pie. So the only thing that I will say about this, and I actually made this pie to send to my Nana for Mother's Day because my mom was going down there to see her. And she has always loved the strawberry pie that Shoney's used to have. I don't even know that there's Shoney's around anymore. But if you know what Shoney's is, leave me a comment down below. Let me know. But my Nana always has loved Shoney's and loved their strawberry pie. So, since there's not a Shoney's around us anymore, I try to make her one of these from time to time, and it was definitely a hit. So I'm glad I did that. But anyways, you just want to dissolve all of this. Again, I'll leave the exact recipe down below for you. But this was very, very close. I will say, I just don't think that the mixture, I would have used the full box of gelatin, not half and that sort of thing, that the recipe called for, and just made more of this gelatin mixture and then poured it over. But that's just me. I like a very, very full pie crust, whatever you want to call it. So here's what the pie crust looks like. I did poke the holes in there, as you can see, and then just baked it. That's for air so that you don't get any bubbles that pop up. I chopped up a whole mess of strawberries, and just fresh strawberries, put them into the pan, and then we're going to pour this gelatin mixture over the top. And this is what I was talking about, and actually you're going to see me spill it all over my counter. And honestly, if you don't spill it all over your counter, then what are you doing? So that's just me. That's because these strawberries are just tightly packed in there, and so it makes a mess. But my counters were clean, my things were clean, so I'm not worried about it. I'll clean my counters up again. So you saw that I lost a couple tablespoons there, but even if I had not lost that amount to my countertop, I still just feel like there needed to be more gelatin mixture for more of the glaze for this pie. But that's just my opinion. You may think it is totally fine, so you know, just do your best to get it evenly in here. Again, if it were me, I would double the glaze and just use what I needed of it. But it did turn out delicious. It was a hit, so you know, we didn't miss it too much, did we? So there's that. And then, like I said, you just pop this into the fridge and then let it set for a couple of hours, and you are good to go to serve. So you don't even have to bake this one, which is nice, as summer is really ramping up and it is super hot, and we don't always want to turn our oven on, right? You know, it's just not the thing to do when it's 95 degrees outside. We just don't want to turn our oven on. So if that's the case for you, this is an awesome option that does not require you to turn your oven on. So let me know if you try this. Would love to know your thoughts, but here it is. And I'm just going to let it set up in the fridge before I wrap it up and send it with my mom to see my Nana. Okay, so here's our rolls. They have set up. They have doubled in size-ish. And I have just got them covered with a damp tea towel here. And when they are ready to go, I put them in the oven. I think it was 375, and baked them for about 15 minutes. Here they come. They were so good, so light and fluffy, just absolutely delicious. So could not say enough good things about that recipe. If you need a good yeast roll recipe, that is the one to use. Okay, also with our grilled chicken, I made some fried corn, some skillet corn, cream corn, or whatever you want to call it. I took about 6 fresh ears of corn here and cut it off of the cob, and then I've got a couple tablespoons of butter in a skillet over medium heat, and I am just tossing it here, getting it all coated in the butter, and then we're just going to fry it up. And once this cooks for a few minutes, then I'll add in the cream, a little bit of salt, and maybe a little bit more butter, but I just kind of watch it and let it go. And my husband actually had never had corn like this, and my mom was like, "You've never made him like skillet corn, like fried corn?" I'm like, "I guess not." But he absolutely loved it, has requested it since then, and I know that it is just something that I loved growing up, and I don't really know why I have never made it, you know, for my husband. I mean, we've been married 10 years at this point, but we will not be missing out on the fried corn any longer. This is so good. It's just simple ingredients. If you don't have heavy whipping cream, use milk. It'll be just fine. Here's our plate. My husband and I split the baked potato because these things were huge, and we started diving into it before I actually got to show you our plate. But there's a look at the cake all finished. It was delicious. And that was our Mother's Day. Thanks for joining me, and until next time, I'll see you in the comments down below. Bye, y'all.